Welcome to Happy Times and Places, in which I, Toby Haydock, am stuck in a cottage at night time with only the ingredients for a Molotov cocktail and a Doctor Who podcast that is positive in intent, in which I try to see if I can identify my special guests' favourite things about their Doctor Who story of choice.
Hello, Toby Haydock. My name's Chris Chapman, and I make documentaries for the Doctor Who range for the Blu-ray collections at the moment and the DVDs before that. I'm recording for you some things about a Doctor Who story called The Seeds of Doom.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to part 5 of The Seeds of Doom, which has been chosen, as you heard, by Chris Chapman, who has made and continues to make fantastic DVD and Blu-ray extras. Some would say too many of which feature me. And he's still going strong. He's making a load at the moment, none of which actually feature me, although there are, as I record this, a couple in the can that haven't been properly announced. He's hinted at them. But anyway, he took some time out in between shooting on his excellent, the high-definition cameras that he uses. The production quality of the stuff that he does is really, really good. It does look fantastic, the stuff that he puts together. He's chosen The Seeds of Doom, which I think was done for the DVD range just before Chris entered the fray. So I wonder if he's making up for a gap in his oeuvre by contributing a little film that he's done of him talking to camera. If you're listening to the audio version of this, you just have to imagine his cheerful, bearded teddy bear face getting all excited about The Seeds of Doom. So let's see what he's going to say at the end about episode 5. But before we do that, I have to watch it. And I have to watch it from the beginning, which I'm going to do right about now in 3, 2, 1. There we go. So, welcome to episode 5. If you have an Alexa, I would cover her ears right now, because hang on. Alexa, volume 4. So I'm sorry if I interfered with your Alexa there, if she was listening to my voice on the side. So anyway, it's episode 5 of The Seeds of Doom. Now, if I had people, you see, I would have had all that lined up beforehand. But we're going now anyway. So it's the end of Dunbar from the previous episode. This videotape it's nicely atmospheric here at night time. The disadvantage you have from videotape is, one, you get the sort of tram lines. There's a name for it that I can't remember now. It doesn't matter, you can look that up. And don't write in, I'll remember it by the time I finished, or just after I finished, knowing my luck. And it's where gunshots interfere with the videotape and make those lines run along the picture, which wouldn't have happened with film. But I think this actually looks pretty good. Some excellent OB lighting, very nicely shot. The nighttime helps. It's really good. Apart from that kink in that costume, some machine gun fire and some more of the tram lines. But that monster moves okay. I was quite surprised to see it, of course, that size, because it's that size on the book cover, but it's the size of a house. But this is really dramatic and fantastic stuff, and suddenly you have this great, part of the story where suddenly Scorby and the Doctor and Sarah suddenly have to be allies, and that makes for a great atmospheric, sort of tense feeling within now this cottage that they're trapped in. So suddenly things step up a gear because the monster's grown, but also that you're stuck inside with somebody that a couple of episodes ago was trying to kill you, and I really like the sort of tension in this relationship that they have here. I love all of this stuff in the cottage. Tom Baker's sort of brooding, sort of cussed presence, but he also has that thing where he doesn't quite have time for bully boys like Scorby or lunatics like Chase. And I love the way that Baker's Doctor has that sort of universal aloofness about him. People are replaceable. The Krynoid is unique. That's a great line. It's 8 foot high and it's already killed Dunbar. I love all of this, and great the way that Tom the Doctor takes the thing off him, and that sort of very deadpan way that he does, that tries to impart the information, and then the fury that the Doctor has. It's all glorious. I think the tempo and the judgment of Tom Baker's performance in these scenes is magnificent, and Elizabeth Sladen plays her part as well by keeping it sort of down to earth and human. That thing that she does brilliantly. Look, she's scared but brave. Nice tentacle. This bit doesn't quite work, does it? Because obviously Sarah can't actually hit it with the axe, which makes a slightly compromise there. But and Tom Baker's handy with a sword. He wields it with a certain sort of practical dirtiness. Now, how do we feel about the voice of the Krynoid? This doesn't quite match up with everything else for me, and I don't think it. I mean, we of course we need this to have this face-off now between the Doctor and Scorby. So I think it's a price worth paying. I like the fact the Doctor doesn't show any fear either, because he's like, no, come on, this is an obvious bloody ruse. But of course, it hasn't quite occurred to him that Scorby might go for it, and he has to go, oh, what? No, come on, we haven't got time. Again, I've heard that one before. I love the way that he does that, and his mind is racing. He's sort of aloof to this. He hasn't got time for people to be stupid people. I love it. It works, and the way that Sarah is arguing with Scorby, and he has to come in, and she is so good. This is brilliant. So although I think the talking Krynoid is a compromise, it works better as a sort of homicidal vegetation. I love Tom Baker's reaction here, that the way that he decides to play it so fierce. So good, and the fact that he then stumbles across the bomb, and then the absolute child in me goes, oh, I like the fact that we get villains who can make a firebomb, and the fact that the Doctor slightly patronises him as well. Come on, but the fact, I don't doubt for a second that John Challis, who again was actually a bit of a turn. He was a bit of a, as I said previous episodes, he fancied himself as a light comedian. I absolutely buy that guy can make a Molotov cocktail. And I didn't really know what a Molotov cocktail was, but I think my brother being quite impressed with that. And then I read later, it was one of the things that Mary Whitehouse, wasn't it? Or was it Jean Rook? Somebody objected to the making of Molotov cocktails, which of course means as a teenage boy, I'm all over it going. And do you know what? I still don't know how to make a Molotov cocktail. I could sort of guess. I'd probably burn my arm. But it hasn't made me adept at firebomb making. But I love the visceral thrill that thuggishness gives as a sort of violent undertone to this very tense action. And this is very, very much to my taste. And then you've got this lovely stuff where you've got the governor from Porridge, who is Sir Colin Thackeray, Michael Barrington here, and I mean, Amelia Ducat, whose usefulness to the story has already been sort of stretched too far. She certainly doesn't need to be in this episode, but it's funny. Operation armed an ACAT gun at Folkestone, and brilliant stuff about the civil servants, and I am one of them. She's got a great costume too, and she's one of Doctor Who's few smokers. God bless her. Proper British eccentric. We love it. And now, he gets her out. So, I mean, none of this was in the book, but it's all, gorgeous stuff. And, it's still got that slight atmosphere of, this is after hours, this is nighttime. And although it has a comic seam to it, when he shuts the door on her, he's, it's like he's going to mean business. And he does a good job, Michael Barrington, of he plays the comic stuff as necessary, but then this is deadly serious stuff. Chase now has a slightly darker suit on, which I rather like. It suits him, those colours. Very nice. And he's got a mean line in ties, hasn't he? He's got a beautiful intensity, hasn't he? Oh, and now and it does feel like morning. I wonder how early they filmed, but you can sort of feel the sort of the light has just broken through and there's sort of dew in the air. And I don't know if that's just because it's very well done or if they actually did film it that early. But it feels like that in these scenes here. It's great. It's absolutely terrific. And I think, people locked in a cottage with a homicidal giant vegetable beast outside. Very nice Doctor Who, but everybody playing it absolutely seriously. And this fact that it's a really sort of tense marriage of convenience. It's wonderful stuff. And Baker obviously has such respect for Elizabeth Sladen, and they carry the drama so nicely. And he's got such a sort of waspish intensity about him. But also he's really funny. You can feel the dew in the air there with Harrison Chase out with his lunatic, madly taking his photos of the giant plant beast. So here we have the Molotov cocktail, which is a nifty little effect, very quick, not on screen for long. And this is actually the CSO of the Krynoid is not bad. It's not bad. I mean, considering some of the CSO in Terror of the Zygons, this serial's bedfellow, Pat Gorman alert. I think there are very few compromised effects in this show. In fact, the effects in this show are very strong. I mean, the trained eye can see that there's a bit of CSO going on there, but I think it sells it. I think it sells it fine. And the bit with it, with the cottage and everything else going on, I thought was very well done. So this is I hope I think about this because this is very much to my taste, and I'm aware why people may have objections to some of the stuff that goes on here. But I suppose because this was always a Doctor Who story, it doesn't seem quite as anomalous as it might. This was just part of the great big canvas of Doctor Who when I discovered it all at once. Well, I mean, I probably discovered this quite early because it was one of the books that we had, and it's quite a slim volume. And he's so good, isn't he? I've read people have sort of read slightly more into this and wanted to be, I would say, a little bit too grown up with the dynamic that they infer from what's happened between Scorby and Sarah. And people can read what they like into Doctor Who. That's part of the fun. We all reacted to it in our own ways. But I think if you're desperate to see a sexual assault perpetrated by Scorby on Sarah as part of your reading of this text, that's all very good. But that I think takes the attempts to be grown up that this does. This is grown up, but very much in the confines of a tea time drama. It pushes it as far to the edge as it can go, but I don't think it goes into those realms. But if as I say, I know some people who like. I wouldn't say they like to read it into that, but I've never read that into it. He's just going to pick up where we left off before, i.e. when I tied you to a bomb and left you to get blown to bits or eaten by a plant beast. And I think that's it's a little bit like when I was first allowed to swear in an English essay by my forward-thinking English teacher, not essay, story, and I threw loads of swear words in, and he said, just because I said you could, I think you've done it a little bit too much. And I think sometimes we sort of say, sometimes I think when we say Doctor Who is a programme about wonderful niceness and liberalism, I see it all the time online now. People are missing the message of Doctor Who. The message of Doctor Who is largely, here's something entertaining about a benign alien who tells jokes while he blows up monsters. He or she blows up monsters. And yes, I very much read the liberal take of Doctor Who, but there's also an illiberal take you could take. He finds the things that are bad and he kills them. Or now that's Keith Ashley. That, as the secretary, is one of the two guys inside the Krynoid who's also a Zygon, but he gets no credit. But it gets a nice little bit. Anyway, look, we can talk about multi-readings of Doctor Who elsewhere, because there's so much good going on here. He's busy, brilliant, all this waffle. The righteous fury of the Fourth Doctor is rather wonderful. I suppose they could have had the Brigadier in this had Nicholas Courtney been around, but instead John Aitchison comes in as a one-off, Major Beresford. But Philip Hinchcliffe liked Possession, didn't he, very much? So we've just seen Harrison Chase about to get possessed by the Krynoid, which again I'm not quite sure the story needs because he was already bonkers. But this is a lovely scene. The fact that these two guys sort of embrace the silliness of it, going, psychopathic rhubarb or whatever, but then you have these actual examples. Somebody strangled in a garden maze, murderous kale, and then suddenly you're going, oh, hang on, we've got a murderous vegetable, and these two guys have been joking seconds ago, and now they switch it completely, and the Doctor's got that ghost. He always has that slight ghost of amusement, doesn't he, about the terrible things that are happening, because he has to laugh in the face of danger almost. She's so natural on the phone, and look, their love for each other sort of transmits even when they're both in separate parts of the studio. I don't even know if this would have been done at the same time. I doubt it. And yet I totally buy it. And that's a nice little nifty effect, cutting the wires, because homicidal gooseberries and whatever, she does that phone talking acting so naturally. So good. The stakes have just got higher. Not only have we got a walking vegetable beast, suddenly all the plants have become homicidal. Oh, this is what we want from episode 5. Not more of the same. We're building up to a climax, and the stakes have just got higher. Not only are the plants now all bad, but also Chase is now a sort of vessel of the Krynoid. And this is done very well. I'd not remembered this from the book, and this isn't a part of the story that ever sort of leaps out to me, even though he does it absolutely wonderfully. I do feel it slightly undermines Chase as a villain in a way that he was already good enough. He didn't need to be taken over by the plant. But I don't know why that is. It just doesn't chime with me as much as other parts, I think. I mean, as I say, Tony Beckley does it absolutely beautifully, and it's wonderfully directed there by Camfield, with him lying down and the profile and the grass and the crossfade. Scorby's changed into some sexy villain gear. I like that. He can pull off a roll neck sweater. Not everybody can, I have to say. And Scorby goes through an absolute transformation, and I love the fact that he's now this sort of this uneasy ally, and also that he goes, that's a lovely bit that he actually doesn't believe that the Doctor has come back, and Sarah can sort of scold him about that. And then Sarah gets this brilliant riposte to the thing about being people running away, being like a bunch of women. She is so good. Oh, she is brilliant, isn't she? Oh, she is. I mean, scold is absolutely the right word, but she's still so totally likable, and she's not a ball breaker. She's not there's no attempt to sort of have to make her sort of tough or physical. Her toughness is an emotional toughness. She's not she's still the sort of traditional companion figure, but she's brave, and she's tough, and she's so good. And he, I mean, look, he is so good, Tony Beckley. And again, this could be quite difficult to pull off. And he does it. He does it with a wonderful, straightforward intensity. And yes, that slight sort of camp aloofness doesn't go from him, but you do get that he's sort of slightly possessed. And you've got Scorby there keeping it all completely down to earth. That's a great exchange. He must have been gone for years, if you ask me. Yeah, he was always bonkers. Just because he'd been taken over a plant, it's actually not that much different. And this could be ridiculous. You know, he's a man in the lotus position talking to some flowers, and yet it's actually really disturbing, as observed by a butler with organ music, and yet it's absolutely straight. It's totally believable, yet daft as a brush. I mean, that's Doctor Who at its best for me. It's not allowing the daftness of the whole premise. You know, somebody travels through space and time in a police box that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. But you have to let that speak for itself. You don't play up to that. I mean, there are times and there are stories where it's an advantage to do that. But in this kind of show, everybody's, you know, on song to his tune dedicated to Linnaeus. And having the butler there really helps as well. It just gives it that slightly eccentric edge, and it's wonderfully shot, beautifully lit. The look on Tony Beckley's face is absolutely extraordinary. Yeah, and Scorby is almost becoming the sort of the hero of this bit. Now it is our turn. Oh, he's so good. He's so good. And this is it's terrible because I just want to watch it because it's really good. Yeah, it's and yet the central premise of this is that, you know, all the plants are going to start eating. Well, that's a great premise, isn't it? You know, what if the roles? It's a very simple idea. You know, what if suddenly plants are the predators and you know, we're the prey. That's a wonderful, quick, you know, switcheroo. That's the your Yeti on the loo and Tooting Beck moment. That's the something strange, a strange twist on what we know, and it's a brilliant reversal. And isn't it interesting how it still retains its atmosphere even though the sun's out? This is all very good because this is the sum of the stuff that, you know, one could have read in the book, but actually been a bit pony when realised in the studio, and it's absolutely not at all. You know what it is? It's sort of stagehands off stage, shaking plastic foliage, but it absolutely completely works. And it's, you know, horrifying. The idea of being strangled to death by plants is pretty grim. And the calmness of Chase in the middle of it all is really, really unsettling. And you've got I remember in the book being quite pleased at how, you know, that Hargreaves was still alive at this point, and then go, oh no, he's going to die now, isn't he? And actually, I seem to recall the way that his sort of corpse is left with that sort of slightly limp hand, you know, hanging amongst the foliage is pretty grim. And of course, this makes it, you know, get a bit of weed killer in, but it does mean that Chase, he's got the line, hasn't he? Animal fiends, which is glorious. Animal fiends. Yeah, I mean that takes it about as far as you can go, but I'm still with this all the way. This is, you know, And I think having, an army soldier looking in proper army gear, that all helps. This was all the stuff of, proper drama, proper adventure stuff. And poor old Hargreaves is dead. And Ray Barron here as Sergeant Henderson. He's sadly died a few years ago. I don't know did he ever give an interview? He's in Cathy Cummer. Look at the way that Hargreaves' hands are left there among the moving foliage. That's such a great image. Tom Baker in the Tom Baker years, I think, mistakes Ray Barron here for Jeff Hinsliff, from who is in Nightmare of Eden and Image of the Fendal. Because I think he says, isn't that somebody from Coronation Street? But yeah, he means Jeff Hinsliff. He's got it wrong. But Ray Barron was in Cathy Come Home and did various bits and bobs. The Ray is short for Rayner, not Raymond, as most would expect. Now, here's... and the Doctor's really horrible to Sergeant Henderson throughout. I remember my brother catching this bit and me thinking, this is the Seeds of Doom. There's nothing wrong with this. He won't have a problem with anything of this. And he says, why are they putting them down flat? Why aren't they just chucking them out? And it's, of course, because they're really expensive prop plants that they can't destroy. But if in real life, if you were getting rid of these plants, would you sort of place them down? I was like... Such a thing would never occur to me as somebody watching Doctor Who and going, this is brilliant, all the effects are good, the acting's good, the atmosphere, the story, everything. And he comes in and goes, oh yeah, why aren't they throwing the plants away? Why are they putting them down safely? And I'm just like, I have nothing to say to that, but why have you noticed that bit of all the bits? But I used to dream of, as I say, of my brothers and people sort of coming in while I was watching an undoubted classic like this and go, actually, Toby, you're right. Doctor Who is the best thing ever. Shall we do some sort of pilgrimage and watch the whole thing, and I'll tell you how brilliant all of Doctor Who is. It's funny, the Krynoid's voice. I'm being surprised back because I think it just said, Krynoid voice in any episode guides or whatever, but it's quite long-winded, is it? The Krynoid's voice, Richard Conway, excellent special effects, excellent OB lighting, Clive Potter, excellent studio lighting, John Dixon, brilliant design, Roger Murray Leach, Philip Hinchcliffe, Douglas Camfield, dream team. So that is a superb piece of work. I like it an awful lot, and I think I'm going to find it fairly easy to choose my favourite thing about it, because it has to be the scene in the cottage, the face-off between the Doctor and Scorby, the beginning of that uneasy alliance, that wonderful journey that Scorby has from being the baddie to this, this uneasy ally, but just Tom Baker's simmering fury that comes beautifully. He suggests that it comes from a sort of alien aloofness and that hasn't got time for all the stupid things that we do that get us killed or that preoccupy us, the petty little squabbles that we have or whatever. I like it when the Doctor... I sort of prefer it, actually, when the Doctor can teach us a thing or two rather than the Doctor learning from... I mean, it works both ways, but... I think it's. I sometimes think we as a species could do with learning a thing or two, and I don't always feel that the cold alien Doctor has to learn about wonderful humany things from us. I actually quite like the dynamic where get a grip. That the universe is such a big place full of wonder and danger and all sorts of amazing concepts to get your head around. Stop being a petty-minded flipping moron. And Tom Baker's so good at that sort of, that lofty intelligence, that alien aloofness, that sort of terse dismissal of our sort of stupidity. And that's all there, without ever undermining the sense that the Doctor knows that he's in danger. He knows Scorby's being, selfish and petty, and not quite seeing the bigger picture. But he's not unaware that also could mean that he's dead. So I think that dynamic, and Elizabeth Sladen being there as well, where she argues on the Doctor's behalf and the Doctor has to interject, and Scorby going, well, why don't I do that? And the Doctor absolutely sort of tearing him apart with that absolutely intense fury, and the fact that it ends with Scorby going, "Shall I make a firebomb?" like they're doing grown-up things. I love it, even though it's got, as I say, the compromise bit, the Krynoid talking, and it's Mark Jones doing it. So that's actually, and in fact, I haven't touched upon that at all. The fact that it's Mark Jones means there's a vestige of Keeler, within there, and that goes into Hinchcliffe's love of possession, which you've also then got with Chase being possessed by the Krynoid, which is, that's quite Quatermassy in the Quatermass experiment. The big vegetable beast that takes over Westminster Abbey it's very fundamental to the plot that still retains the vestiges of humanity of the three astronauts within. And so I can see, which is why the Krynoid voice is I suppose important, to why Chase being taken over is important, because then it's the sort of, the parody of humanity that becomes, or the subjugation of humanity to vegetable will, the will of the chlorophyll. So even though but as I say, part of me just sort of prefers it to be a big murderous vegetable that takes over plants. But it doesn't matter. I'm nitpicking. I love it. I think it's so good. And there's so much else that's good in that. I love Chase sitting cross-legged and doing his eulogy to root, stem, leaf, and flower, and it's our turn, and then the plants all coming alive and attacking everybody. I love all of that. But even the Doctor's little bit of exchange of plot catch up with Sir Colin, and the Major is driven by Tom Baker's urgency, shutting that secretary out, and the waffle. This drives the story. It drives the story with an intense sort of alien, passion and urgency. He hasn't got time for red tape and all that sort of thing. He's so good, Tom Baker. So good. This is one of his best performances. But yeah, it's the scene in the cottage. It's the scene in the cottage that I just love about episode 5. What's Chris Chapman, producer director extraordinaire, going to choose?
Episode 5 of the Seeds of Doom. Now, I love the Seeds of Doom. I'll admit that from probably people talk about it having a poor ending. I think from episode 5 onwards, it's slightly losing its way, and it's possibly not. It's got that lovely structure of the 2-parter and the 4-parter, but the 4-parter, because they get so quickly to Chase's house, to the mansion, to the villain's lair, I think it runs out of steam quicker than it should. I don't know if the house should just be the last 2 episodes, and maybe it needs another piece of meat in episode 3 and 4 that's not at the mansion. So you get this slight sense of them treading water, waiting. Now that you've got a giant Krynoid, what are we going to do for 2 episodes to resolve it? And as we know, the resolution ultimately maybe isn't as satisfactory as it could be. But what I love is, what I do enjoy about episode 5 very much is that in order to deal with that problem of how they keep the story going, they create a mini story within the story. And so we've established the cottage in episode 4. That's where Keeler was being poorly. And at the end of episode 4, they're being menaced by Keeler. And in episode 5, they escape from Keeler into the cottage at night time. And you get this kind of base under siege story, proper Troughton base under siege, where they spend the first half, certainly, of the episode at night time in a cottage with a giant plant outside. And it's kind of almost comically, you have bits of the plant coming in through the windows, but it has this kind of straw dogs kind of Stan Peckinpah kind of brutality to it, that the Doctor's making up Molotov cocktails and bunging them out the window. And you get, this is where you really start to see that alliance, that uneasy alliance between the Doctor and Sarah and Scorby, where it's really a showcase for that. So I love that episode within an episode. I mean, you could argue it's padding. It doesn't add anything other than maybe deepening that relationship between those 3. But it's great padding. And Camfield really kind of gives it an edge and keeps it very straight. And again, the studio direction's excellent. And I love the Doctor shows the tea time audience how to make a Molotov cocktail. There you go, kids. Knock yourself out. So I really, really enjoy that. And so that would be my favorite thing about episode 5, is cottage base under siege. Yeah.
Yeah, cottage under siege. I think that was pretty much what I said. So I actually get a point. I'm quite right. I just love that scene. But I mean, it's, wonderful. And I grudgingly admit that I think Chris is probably right, that it does tread water, maybe. And I think this will be interesting to see what happens with episode 6, where, a lot of people, I think, feel that part 6 is a bit of an anticlimax. And indeed, I think that's a criticism that can be levelled at a number of Hinchcliffe stories. And I will discuss that in episode 6, because I hold my hands up to that, and yet I also don't care. And yet I would be less forgiving in, I think, stories that are less robust, well told, and expending their energies elsewhere. And I wonder if that's hypocritical of me, or or it's just all a matter of taste. But I do think that you can objectively say that production-wise, and in terms of performance and realization and effects, and the very practical things, the lighting, the set design, all of those things, Philip Hinchcliffe's stuff is particularly strong. It particularly excels in all areas of production. I think more consistently than any other era. But that might just be because it's to my taste. But anyway, my taste is very much for vegetables. Yes, my taste is very much for the brassica and the root that makes up the villainous threat of this particular Doctor Who story. So let's have another absolutely a vegetarian course of Doctor Who next week. But as I say, some people say it means that it leaves them slightly unsatisfied. Not that it's vegetarian, but that vegetables just all get flambéed by the RAF. But let's see how we find it. But for now, I'm going to make sure the doors of this cottage are locked, and I'm going to raid the drinks cabinet in order to make any weapons I might need, because now I know how to. So I'll raise a Molotov cocktail to all of you at home, and we'll see you on the next edition of Happy Times and Places. Goodbye. Well, thank you ever so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Haydoke, and my special guest, Chris Chapman, who can be found on Twitter at ChrisChapman81. I'm grateful to him and to the many patrons who make these podcasts possible, and they include Ruben Herfindahl, Stephen Moffat, well, that one, Luke Atkins, Peter Adamson, John Arnold, Kevin Ashleford, James Bell, David Bickley, Will Brooks, Rick Byatt, Robin Bland, Alex Kafajoglu, Paul Carnahan, Andy Case, John Curley, Mark Dakin, John Elledge, Sam Esteram, Gary Gillett, James Gould, Lisa C. Greco, David Green, Fraser Gregory, Paul Gregory, Dave Hoskin, Richie Howarth, Tim Jolly, Andrew Jordan, Ashley Knight, Clive Lewis, Guy Lambert, James Lark, Gavin McLean, David Matthewman, Jason Mayo, John McClay, and Rosamut Phillips. The music is by Dave Gates and the artwork by Dylan Patterson. And if you would like to join that list of names, you can become a patron and get mentioned at the end of an episode. There are various tiers. The higher tier on, the more you will be mentioned. But that's pretty much it in terms of the hierarchy. There are a couple of extra things for the higher tiers, but most stuff is available at entry point, which is £3 a month, for which you get 3 releases a week generally, and you're also 6 months in advance with these Happy Times and Places releases. and about a month ahead with the Too Much Informations and the Indefinable Magics. And you also get a bonus podcast called Far Too Much Information, which nobody else gets, which is the sort of extra trivial stuff. But, it's a full-length entry into each Doctor Who story in order. So patrons are just about to get some more bits about the Edge of Destruction, which I wasn't sure it was possible to find any bits. But anyway, I've done all right. And so, yes, become a patron at patreon.com/Toby Haydock. £3 a month, but you get 10% off that if you sign up for a year. Any tier, 10% off if you go all in all at once, and that commits you to a year. If you can't commit to a monthly thing, you can go to kofi.com/Toby Haydock and just throw some pennies into my hat if ever I sound hungry. What costs you nothing if, times are tough. And not if. I know they are. Times are tough. Things are going up. Things are skyrocketing. So look, I'm happy just to be providing you with a diversion from the daily grind, to be perfectly honest. And it's nice to feel part of a sort of Doctor Who community and to be doing something that, enables me to talk to everybody out there, whether it's via Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Toby Haydock. These podcasts have their own stream at Haydock Podcasts, but I get feedback from the patrons as well, and we have little chats, and it's nice to feel part of a wider whole as the world gets ever more fractured and fractious. So what costs you nothing if you can't do the financial thing, which I totally understand. I'm just grateful to you for listening. But you could go to iTunes or Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts, and indeed go onto Twitter and all the other places and say nice things about these. Direct people to them. Bit of word of mouth helps, but what also helps is 5-star reviews and a couple of lines saying what you like about these. That really helps. Okay, well, I'm still sort of recovering from COVID. So I'm not at my best, but I'm still popping these out. And I have to say, I got very enthused watching The Seeds of Doom. So do tune in to the next episode, because I found episode 6. Well, I'm not going to give anything away, but it was, I started thinking about all the people that have contributed to the legend of Doctor Who. And, I find it very moving that we know their names and we invoke their names long after a great number of them are no longer with us. In fact, thinking about the Seeds of Doom, Michael McSty is still around, John Gleeson is still around, and David Masterman, the Guard leader, is still around, and Tom Baker, of course. So, but I think of the credited cast, that's it. Wow. 4 actors out of the whole lot. Very sobering. So yeah, I'm very much enjoyed the Seeds of Doom, and I hope people who've listened to this, who like it, have had their love reinforced. I certainly have had that by Chris's contribution. It's always great hearing from somebody else going, oh yeah, I love that they love that as well. And just getting you talking about it and thinking about it, and hopefully communicating that to you. But actually what I'm doing unusually for this one is I normally go into my recording booth to record the credits and the this nonsense, just because it sounds slightly better. But time is not on my side, and I need to put this out for patrons about an hour and 43 minutes ago. So instead, I've not moved my seat and I've recorded the credits and this bit where I record the commentary. Will anyone... So are these slightly different quality than if I'd done them in the sound booth? Or have I been unplugging and resetting up in a different location, or for a minor change in sound quality that nobody notices? Who knows? Because nobody's listening now. I know some of you are listening now, and you're welcome, the lovely people who hang around right to the end. But does this sound different from the usual post-credits stuff. Is there an echo? Is there a buzz? I can hear my projector, but I don't know if that buzz from the projector is here. Is the fact that I'm not in a soundproofed studio is a bit of an optimistic word. It's my DVD shelves inverted and lined with sponge. But I've done Radio 4 plays from there, and as I say, I normally do the credits and those bits in there with headphones on, right up close to the mic and blah, 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 blah. And instead I'm doing this on my sofa with the jerry-rigged stuff that I commentate through. So there we go. There's an interesting thing for audio historians to pick over, should that unlikely event ever happen. There's part of me that wants it to, though. There's part of me that really does, but most of me knows that's ridiculous. But I'm not going to disallow the fact that lurking within me somewhere is some vain hope for posterity. If you want posterity, Toby, make something as good as the Seeds of Doom, not something that just talks about it. Noted. But then I'd have to spend less time doing this and more time writing and making brilliant things. So maybe the fact that I secretly know that might be beyond my abilities, which is why I do this instead. So I hope you blooming like it. Anyway, off I go. I'm enjoying. Yeah, but I'm recording this having done episodes 5 and 6, and I really I look forward to hearing episode 6, but I hope you've liked episode 5. Okay. Molotov cocktail time.